Hello and welcome to The Editor and the Alien, a comedy.
Rubik's Cube, the movie.
Exactly. So we're continuing our movie review series. Tonight we'll be covering the 1997 sci-fi cult classic Cube, which is seriously underrated.
Extremely underrated.
And I don't know, it was one of those films that came out, got a lot of acclaim, and then just kind of died on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Well, I don't think the movie Cube died on the Sci-Fi Channel. What killed the idea of the movie was Cube 2 Hypercube and Cube 3. I don't remember what the tagline for that one was. But basically all these sci-fi original bullshit sequels that really weren't.
Yeah, none of those had anything to do with the original writer-director. Say that name. The guy's a French-Canadian.
Vincenzo Natali.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I probably slaughtered his name. So sorry, Vincenzo. There we go. Sorry, Vincenzo.
Sounds like an Italian name, actually.
It does.
But I believe he's a French-Canadian.
Well, that would explain why he had a French character.
Well, maybe he was just being inclusive for the Canucks.
Yeah, probably.
But
I mean, the woman who played Levin, she's Canadian. She was on Forever Night.
I think they're all Canadian actors, actually. It was a Canadian production done by the same Canadian production company, or it was funded by the same company that funded Ginger Snaps.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, the director did, I believe, special effects photography for Ginger Snaps.
Shit, how did this film escape getting cut to ribbons like Ginger Snaps did?
It wasn't as gory.
It wasn't as gory.
But he has done a number of other films, some I haven't seen, but I really want to see, and others that I really, really liked. In general, I feel this director himself isn't kind of getting the attention he should have. He's kind of been relegated to now doing direction for straight to cable or straight to
on demand.
Like he's directing episodes of Westworld and Hannibal and Lost in Space, which isn't bad.
No,
but I'd much rather he's doing his own thing. Another film of his we really liked was called Haunter, which is definitely going to get a review.
Yes. Shit, he worked on Earth Final Conflict?
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
So anyway, give a quick explanation of what Cube is about.
Cube is about a group of people who have discovered that they have been shanghaied from their lives and put inside this cube. And the film is the mystery of the cube as well as their interaction with each other.
Yeah, and the cube is full of death traps, and every room looks identical to the next, except for the fact of the color of the room.
Okay, I will say this. I was joking. It was Rubik's Cube, the movie. But the truth is that, okay, real quick. Spoiler alert. Anybody who didn't know that we were going to spoil this film, we're going to talk about this film, and it may spoil things for you. So just warning. If you don't want to be spoiled, go watch it and then listen to this episode when you're done, because this film is amazing. But anyway, as part of this film, the rooms are different colors. So my joke about this being Rubik's Cube, the movie, it actually kind of fits, but it's not. You don't get that vibe at all in this.
And another thing that I would want to point out is this film, one of those, fools in a bottle type plots, or where you've got, it's a character study. You get a handful of people. They are awakened in a mysterious place and have to escape. Mm-hmm. And through that, you learn about them. When this film came out, that was not a cliche.
No, it wasn't. It was not done very often.
There wasn't all those horrible straight to sci-fi movies that was that plot. There wasn't Saw and all the Saw knockoffs that was that plot. It was
No, it was actually I don't want to say a novelty, but yeah, it wasn't cliche. Also, we're going to chat about the film, and just like we did last week with Perfect Blue, then we will go back through and answer your comments and questions. So just bear with us if we don't immediately comment on what you may say. We will get to that at the end of the program.
And one more thing. YouTube fucking hates us.
Yes.
Just saying, YouTube fucking hates us. A lot of you guys keep telling us over and over again that you are not being notified when these go up. And even after they've been posted, you're not notified of it. I'm noticing weird stuff happening within behind the scenes in the content management. Things keep getting moved and changed. So if you could do me a favor before we really tear into this, go on to Twitter or whatever social media you prefer and retweet the link just to help us out, because that's the only way people find out this show is even on.
And yes, we are going to try to make this a regular thing. So this will be our schedule unless otherwise posted. So that way you can be sure to tune in every week when we cover another movie.
And Commissar Kronsky, I fully agree.
Yes.
Well, I absolutely agree. YouTube are assholes then.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
So let's just start out with the initial opening scene, which was just fucking brilliant. As if you're a storyteller, if you write comics, film, books, it does not matter. This opening scene is well worth studying.
Actually, if you've never seen Cube before, I'm sure this opening scene is available on YouTube or elsewhere online. I know that it was used as the commercial, the trailer for the film to get people interested. Just this opening scene by itself. Watch it. It will hook you. Now,
the scene opens with a man laying in a room. The room is, 14 by 14 by 14. It's a cube, all 14 feet in each direction. The walls are kind of this weird-looking circuitry and schematics. And were they green?
He woke up in the white room.
Yeah, the white room. Okay. And he gets up and he's dressed in essentially prison garb. It's got his name on his shirt. He gets up and he looks around and he's very baffled by what he sees. He notices that there are hatches on the wall. He opens
in the ceiling and in the floor.
Yes. He opens a hatch, crawls through it, and enters a room that's, what was it, red?
It was blue.
Blue. Oh, well, better memory than me this time. And
I actually took the time.
Oh, you notated it?
I notated it, and when I was younger,
we'll get into them.
Yeah.
And then he opens the hatch and realizes there's a blue room that is otherwise identical to the one he's in. He crawls into it, and bam, he is sliced to ribbons by a grid of wires that come out of nowhere. And he falls to pieces on the ground. That is your opening. And from a storytelling perspective...
Actually, he is literally cubed.
Yeah. As far as storytelling is concerned, what's so brilliant about that is, one, it does all the things I like to do with an introductory scene to any of my comics. It's intriguing and interesting and immediately draws you in with the question of what is this and why is it happening?
Well, you awaken to this world just as he's awakening to this world. And as he's opening each hatch and looking in and seeing various different colored rooms, you are experiencing the cube for the first time with him as the viewer.
But what it also does, as well as hook the viewer in with an interesting little vignette of a scene that really is just perfect beat by beat. It establishes all the rules immediately. You know the landscape the story is going to take place in, you know how it's laid out, and you know why it's dangerous. Done. That is all you needed.
Yeah, immediately.
And then the film starts. We get some credits, and we move to another group of characters who all start to converge in one room by one reason or another. Do you want to?
Well, actually, what I realized this viewing that I had not caught in previous viewings is we once again start in the white room. and we see one of our characters, his name is Worth, unconscious on the ground, and the hatch in the bottom opens up, and a bloody hand comes out of that hatch, and who emerges is the character Quentin. And so that's the very first thing that you see is Worth passed out on the ground and Quentin, his hands bloody. And we can assume it's because he's probably run into some of these traps that we are immediately introduced to with the previous character, crawling his way out. And slowly the other characters find their way into this white room and are introduced by, basically all of them asking each other, where am I? What's going on?
And rather than teach you their names, because that would be confusing, we'll identify them by what they're best known as in the film. They are their archetypes. And we've got the cop, a thief, a professional thief, a doctor, an architect who's essentially an office jockey, a teen college student, and then we'll save the last character for later.
Okay.
And very quickly, you realize that not only does each character play an archetype, but reflect a different aspect or a different viewpoint in which people approach the world, be it a ideological stance or political dogma. And they each serve that function, and that becomes more and more visible as the story goes on. Now, there's also a language of colors to the film, and you were going to mention that, so why don't you?
Yes, there are 5 different colored rooms. There's blue, green, orange, red, and white. And different things happen in each of those rooms. And what's great about this film is that the filmmakers use the colors to help set the tone for various scenes, but not in a Dario Argento giallo way where the colors are just screaming into your eyeballs and it kind of hurts to look at. No, it's very subtle, and because you are introduced to the idea that the rooms have colors, it's one of those things where you may not have noticed it, but your brain did, that the colors are actually setting the tone. And I liked how they were able to do that.
And there's this ongoing theme throughout the story of, why are we in the cube? Who put us here? What do they want? What's the purpose of all this? And that keeps being brought up over and over again. And you start to realize throughout the entire tale, everyone is right and everyone's wrong on some degree. And it's the question, what are they right or wrong about? And just to say, the first person to die amongst this new group of people is the thief. Now, from an archetype, he is the loner and an anarchist. If you want to follow behind him, fine. He's more than willing to offer up his opinion, but he's out for himself. Don't get in his way.
Well, it's not just that he's a thief. He's also an escape artist. It is established very quickly that...
they make a point that he escaped the most difficult prison to escape.
He escaped 7 prisons, including the most difficult to escape.
7. Half of 4. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Half of 14.
Exactly. And right before he falls prey to one of the traps of the cube, due to his own arrogance, by the way. If he hadn't been so arrogant and flippant and trying to, make a show for the rest of the crew, he probably would have caught that there was a trap in there. But before that, he makes that speech of how, I've been able to escape these max prisons. I can get us out of here, and the only reason why I'm letting you tag along is because I need your boots.
Yeah, I need your boots. But actually, he doesn't say he can get you out. He says, do you think you can get us out of here? And he said, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, no, he said, I'm only letting you tag along. he just says, I've been able to escape. And that is another point about this film, which I don't know if you were going to bring up or not. Each one of these characters brings a tool to the table to get out of the cube, but the other conflict is that their personalities are so different and they're under a lot of stress, so they're all very hostile towards each other. So on their own, each one cannot get out, and that is reflected again with the thief's character, how he died. But working together, they each bring something to the table.
And it seems that they were specifically picked for those reasons. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting is one of the first things the thief says is, keep your eyes open. And they go, why? Because I got a feeling it's looking at us.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then right before he dies, the very last thing he says to them, you got to save yourselves from yourselves.
And that definitely, actually, I would say that's the theme through the film. You have to save yourself from yourself.
It was kind of a mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
Or a thesis. Mm-hmm. And very quickly, the characters start to fall into roles. The cop is a very law and order figure, very much by the book. Rules, stick to the rules.
Actually, that's not how I saw it.
And
how I saw him.
That's how he seemed to rely on things. That there had to be an order. There had to be an order. There had to be a set hierarchy and a way of doing things. Each person was supposed to do a certain thing. And he immediately put himself in the role of the leader, and no one really seemed to object except the doctor. And the doctor was your archetypical bleeding heart to a fault liberal. She works at a free clinic. She wants to mommy everyone.
But what I also liked about her is, since this film was made in the late 90s, she was a conspiracy theorist a la like X-Files.
Yeah.
So she fully believed in the government corporate
industrial complex had done this to them.
Yeah. And Fig was saying how, well, it's only the government who would have the money to do this. It's only the government that would choose to do this. And she got into a lot of arguments with the architect about that.
And the cop. The cop just said, what do you think that the military industrial complex is? It's guys just like me, just with a bigger desk.
Mm-hmm.
Which is an interesting statement.
Yes.
Now, when they're all arguing, the doctor keeps rambling about conspiracy theories and why is this here and what's this, and the cop says, you can't see the big picture from in here, so don't try.
Mm-hmm.
Stop looking for a reason. And then the doctor responds with, we need to ask the big questions. What does it want? What does it think?
And isn't that the scene where Worth, the architect, kind of flips out and says, No,
okay. This was really early in the film.
Okay.
At this point, Worth was just, why are we even bothering?
Yeah.
The architect was like, who fucking cares? And the architect was essentially a nihilist.
Yes, he was a nihilist. Why are we even moving around? Why don't we just stay here? It's pointless. You're never going to get out. And at first, everybody just took him at face value that he was being a nihilist, that he had already given up, that he wasn't going to fight it.
Then they start to realize every hatch has a number attached to it,
mm-hmm.
a string of numbers, and they think they've figured out that it's prime numbers of the rooms with traps, is what they think. And then you get the weakest part of the film, in my opinion, which was a montage to jump forward in time, giving the impression that they had been kind of passing through these different rooms, and the plan of avoiding prime numbers was keeping them alive.
Really? You thought that was the weakest part of the film?
The montage?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did. With them talking over top of it.
Levin and Quentin
Yeah.
talking to each other. Okay, yeah, that could have been done a little better. But what
It almost felt like to me this was, well, we needed to pad out the runtime.
Actually, what I got from that, just from their tones of voice, because Levin is, again, like 17, and, the cop is, an adult. You can tell in their tones of voices that Levin is starting to get a schoolgirl crush on the cop because, he's acting as a daddy and protector, and he is definitely attentive to Levin. And since it's just them going back and forth, it's building that relationship and how she grows to trust him and, for the most part, side with him, maybe at times when she really shouldn't. And that she's young, naive, and impressionable.
Well, that definitely comes across.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the montage, a new scene starts up, which is when the conflict really begins to start to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of a telling moment when, again, the doctor and the cop are going back and forth at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And she asks the cop, well, why are you, what's driving you to get out? What are you living for? And he says, I have three boys, 9, 7, and 5.
Yep.
Yeah. Take the numbers for what they are.
Yeah.
And the doctor, doing her typical strong, empowered woman routine, archetypical of the 90s bleeding heart, speaks poorly of the cop's wife for tolerating pumping 3 kids out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when things go sour. And then, when the teenage girl helps the cop out by holding his coat.
Real quick, with that said, the cop first says that, the bleeding heart says, I couldn't survive, having 3 kids. And he says, neither could she. And everybody kind of pauses. It's like, wow, that got dark. And he says, oh, no, she's alive. She just left me. And that's when, the cracks start forming in his, veneer of this perfect cop, leader.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I was going to point out is then, when the teenage girl, when the cop's trying to get into the next trapped room,
mm-hmm.
she holds his coat, and again the doctor's, "What are you? His coat wrap?"
Yeah.
And starts speaking poorly about her.
Yeah, and berating Levin for doing a nice thing.
Now, before we proceed any further, I have to point this out. Their names were Levin, Worth, Holloway, Kazan, Alderson, Renz, and Quentin.
Or as Ren said, since it's French, it's Ren, as in the bird.
These are all names or parts of the names of prisons.
Mm-hmm.
They're all named after prisons.
Yeah. Leavenworth, San Quentin. Let's see. Holloway?
Yeah.
Cool.
They all were. All right. And...
Okay, I was wondering about Alderson, where that name came from, because that was, he made a point of showing the viewer that name at the very beginning. Alderson is the name of the gentleman in the prologue. So that's interesting that they're all prisons.
Which, they wake up in prison garb.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a guy who's escaped a prison, 7 prisons.
Yes.
They're all named after prisons.
And, the first thing Levin says, or one of the first things she says is, I didn't do anything that deserves this.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't do anything to deserve this. It's, I didn't do anything that deserves this, which I thought was a very interesting turn of phrase.
And then the next member of the group shows up, which is an autist.
Mm-hmm.
This guy who is a idiot savant who plays a very good autistic guy.
Mm-hmm. Extremely good.
And the condescending, annoying, bleeding heart doctor immediately starts mommying him.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately. And it's like he can do no wrong. And starts coddling him way too much. And it starts to become a problem, because he starts endangering the group. Then we start to get the bit about the doctor being a conspiracy theorist, and the cop just saying, "Oh, you believe that shit? Come on." The autist starts to freak out every time they enter a red room.
He does not like the color red.
And it starts to become very clear as the doctor and the cop keep arguing that it's very clear that the doctor feels she knows better than everyone and that she's smarter than everyone. And what's interesting is probably the smartest person in the group, the nihilist, is just standing back quiet, watching them bumble through this apathetically.
Well, he's the most worldly of the group. He's also, again, spoiler alert, he's also the only one that even has the faintest clue as to what's
really going on.
And because of that, because he has that insight, is why he's not fighting the cube. He's not fighting to leave. And that is his personal struggle through the whole film. Gingers and autistics. Yep.
So when they...
by the way, I saw several people say this, so I'm going to thank you all for retweeting the link to this show. Greatly appreciate you all doing that.
So as the film, yes, I appreciate it. And for that, you will win a star.
A gold star?
Yes. Well, they're still kind of trying to figure out what the hell the numbers on the hatches mean, because they start to realize, oh, it isn't prime numbers that warn of traps. It's more complex than that.
I would also like to point out that as they go through, you know, they make a point of showing each color of the different rooms. And what I caught was the rooms that have colors that you would think mean friendliness or safety, like blue or green, are not.
Yeah, sunny yellow.
Yeah. Is it yellow? I thought it was orange.
No, there was a yellow room.
There was a yellow room? Okay. And then the colors that are, you know, more angry, or we immediately equate with danger, like, again, you know, red or, you know, orange, yellow. You know, sometimes they're dangerous, sometimes they're not, or they have other dangers to them. And I thought that that was an interesting choice.
Well, an admission directly from the director. All the worst shit happens in red rooms purposely, and that's kind of expected.
Yes, but what I liked is that it's not the worst shit you would think. It's not a trap.
Yeah, it's never a trap in the red one.
It's never a trap in the red
it's
one.
Them.
It's them in their interactions with each other. And I really liked that the red was more a test or a trial rather than just simply the environment attacking you. It's danger from within.
Now, as they realize that the numbers on the hatches are more complex than they realized, and they're trying to figure it out, and they're all trying to find meaning in this, the architect, Worth, says, maybe the numbers don't mean anything at all. Again, nihilist. There's no reason to any of this.
Yeah.
Another interesting exchange that turns out the college student, the teen girl, is a math major, and she's computing the numbers, trying to figure out what they mean. And there's one point.
Well, she's more than a math major; she's a math genius.
Yeah,
you know, the fact that she can compute 3-digit numbers and figure out if they are a factor of prime or not.
And as she's crunching the numbers, trying to figure out, well, okay, what is it what's really here? The doctor keeps hassling her, saying, hurry up, right? And the teen says, do you know how many variables I have to consider to factor numbers this size? These numbers don't reveal themselves. They're not tarot cards.
Yeah.
But these numbers don't reveal themselves. And then the cop looks at the doctor and says, neither do people.
Yeah. Which is a comment also to the fact that the cop later starts talking about how he can read people. All he has to do is just look at them, and he knows exactly who they are and you know, what they're thinking and what they're planning on doing. And that's when he starts going off the rails.
That's not when he goes off the rails.
No.
The moment he goes from being competent and someone who is kind of an asshole, but keeping the group together, is the very moment the college student sends him into a room thinking it's safe, and he gets injured. The moment he gets injured, he starts to realize he doesn't have control, and he begins to crack. And he then slowly starts to come apart, becoming more and more desperate to have some sort of semblance of control of the world he's in and security. And it starts as reasonably just someone panicking or someone trying to keep order to just losing his shit. Also, the architect keeps repeating over and over again, there's no way out of here. And now we get to the big twist.
Oh, you want me to reveal it?
Oh, they like your voice better.
Oh, okay, fine. They start getting on the architect for, again, being a nihilist, basically being a boat anchor, constantly trying to drag them down. And he finally just, in a fit of what's very well conveyed is like desperation, he screams, because there's no way out of here. And, brilliantly shot. You even see that there's a tear that drops out of his eye when he says this. And you realize he knows something. And when they question him, it turns out not only is he an architect, he's the architect of the shell around the cube. He doesn't know what was going to be in the shell, but he designed what goes around it.
And I thought it was interesting that he referred to the shell around the cube as the sarcophagus.
Yes.
Now, with your Egyptian fascination, what do you take from that?
Well, as far as Egyptian sarcophagi go, they typically had 3 of them, or multiple ones. Tutankhamun had 3. And each sarcophagus encased one another, kind of like Matryoshka dolls. And the point was, they had spells and things on them, but that's beside the point. It's to make sure that what's inside stays safe inside. And so not only that, the sarcophagus is what you bury people in. It's where people are put when they're dead. So the idea is that when you're in the cube, you're dead, and him knowing that, and later it's revealed he knew for several months that people were being put in this cube. So this isn't a new thing. These are not the first people to be put into this contraption. He had known, but because he's a nihilist, it's, well, this has nothing to do with me. It's,
or worse, he's carrying the guilt.
Yeah. Well, I figured that was why he didn't move, is because he realized where he was and that there was no escape, and he felt guilty because he had helped build this thing. So he's like, well, I might as well die here. And
when they asked him, well, why did you build it? He says, nobody knew what it was for. It was a great job.
Yeah.
I talked to a guy on a phone, and there were plenty of people that each built a different part. Nobody knew, nobody cared what it was for.
Well, he even said, I didn't even have to leave my house. I just talked to people over the phone. And, so it's assumed either the whoever wanted this thing built was directing him from afar, or the people that he was talking to, they didn't know what they were building. He also made the comment of, they're trying to figure out, well, why is this thing built? Why are they putting people in here? What's the purpose? And he says, there is no purpose. They're justifying the fact that they built it. And the thing is there are a lot of government projects where that is the truth. Yes. We put money into it. We built it. Now what do we do with it?
If they don't use it, they'll lose their funding.
Exactly. And
what's interesting is before he gets to that part, the doctor just starts going off. I was right. All my life, I knew it. I was right. And starts going off on ramblings of government conspiracies and JFK.
And she's convinced that she's in the deserts of
New Mexico.
And that is one thing I like, is that by the end of it, you don't know where they are. You don't know where this thing is. And you, the viewer, really don't know still why it was built. And that's okay, because that's not the point. That's not the point of the film, is why it was built or why people were being put into it.
Now, when the doctor is going on about this being a conspiracy, and she's right, the architect finally says, look, there is no conspiracy. Nobody's in charge. It's a headless, blundering mass. That's the best you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nobody in control. We're all part of this system. And the reason we're all here is because the system is out of control. And this causes both the doctor and the cop to crack. Because the thought of there being no order terrified both of them.
Well, not only that, both of them are integral parts of the system. The cop, of course, is there, to keep order in the system, in society. And the cop worked at a free clinic. She depended on government funding on the system to fund her clinic so that she could help the people who are, again, part of the system.
And let's see. Why don't we move on to the next beat, in which they actually find the edge of the cube and look outside.
Okay. Oh.
I like you narrating.
You like me narrating.
You have such a lovely, sexy voice.
Oh.
And then they got to the edge of the cube.
Well, you see, I have the perfect voice for phone work.
But could you imagine if you actually did that in your job?
Oh my God. I've joked with people over the phone like that, but they were people I knew. Anyway, okay, so they finally figure out that they can see where they are in the cube. The cube is 26 by 26 by 26 cubes. Leading to 1,000 some odd number. I don't remember how many they said, but it was over 1,000 cubes inside the larger cube.
17,576 different cubes within it.
Thank you. And, of course, they're thinking, oh, life is hopeless. But then they figure out that the numbers in the doorways
are Cartesian coordinates.
Yeah, they're Cartesian coordinates that lets you know where you are in the cube, and from there they were able to figure out how far it would be to the edge. And when they get to the edge, they're in a white room. I've made a point of paying attention to that. They were in a white room, and they open it up, and it's just this black emptiness space, and all you see in this black space are the lights from all the other doors in the cube that go on into infinity. And I really liked that the director chose to do it that way. No detail work other than these lights. It's like being in the void of space. Really and truly showing that they are cut off from the outside world. In fact, you don't even see the shell that the architect built until much later, and only you get a glimpse of just a wall, and that's it. And there are no handholds, there are no footholds, there is no way to climb up or down. You are in a void when looking out.
Now, prior to this scene, when things start getting really tense and they're beginning to crack and they're getting hungry and nobody really knows how long they've been in there, the autistic guy nearly gets one of them killed.
In a blue room.
Yeah, and it was I would have kicked his ass too for what he had done.
Yeah. What it was they figured out that unless they wanted to backtrack several rooms and take this huge detour, where they needed to go was through this one blue room that did have a trap in it, but the trap was sound triggered. So as long as you were quiet, you could get through. And they decided that's what they were going to do. and the autist wasn't as quiet as he should have been, and nearly killed Quentin.
And at that point, everybody but the doctor wants to leave him. It's like, let's get rid of this guy. He's a liability.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor starts screaming at them, "Shame on you. They may have taken our lives, but we're still human beings." And the cop flat out says, he's endangering the pack. He says, he's endangering the pack. And then the doctor calls him a Nazi.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds pretty familiar now, doesn't it?
Yeah, but
let him go, you Nazi.
The thing is that this film was again made in the 90s.
Yeah.
Before flinging around the word Nazi turned it into trivial bullshit. And what she really meant when she called him a Nazi was the fact that he wanted to exterminate the autist, which the Nazis
didn't want to exterminate.
did.
He just wanted to leave him behind.
He wanted to leave him behind, but let's face it.
It was a death sentence.
Yeah, it was a death sentence.
But they all wanted to leave him.
Actually, I got the impression that Worth,
the architect, didn't care.
Yeah, he really didn't care, because later he comes to Kazan's defense.
Yeah.
So, but it's like he was kind of mealy-mouthing. I was like, do I really want to get involved? And then he decides to stand up.
Then the doctor really starts tearing into the cop about his family and his inadequacies as a husband. And finally, she pushes his buttons to the point that the cop smacks her, and she smiles. She liked that she pissed him off enough to cause him to slap her.
Mm-hmm. Well, it justified her viewpoints of men, for one thing. But another, she knew she had struck him, deeper than he had just struck her.
As if that was what we needed at that point, was them going at it. It's like, great, that helped.
Yeah. Well, then she had to twist the knife even deeper.
Yeah. And I remember the architects just watching the two of them like, I don't care.
Okay, whatever.
So explain what happens then.
Oh, on the wall?
Yeah, after she pisses the cop off.
Yeah, well, specifically, her last cutting comment of that argument is her laughing. Well, because she had made a comment about how he treats women, and that must be why his wife left him. And he struck her for that. And yeah, she laughed, and she says, "Oh, do you beat your kids too?" And the look on his face, you can tell, yes, he does. He never says it. It's never, fully mentioned. But you can tell that she just spoke the truth about him. So when they go to the edge, they decide they're going to try to see if they can get to the shell that Worth had mentioned. And the doctor, Holloway?
Yeah.
Yeah, Doc Holloway.
Well, actually, she was named after a famous women's prison.
Yeah.
And Kazan was named after a Russian mental asylum.
Now that I didn't know.
For criminally insane.
That makes a lot of sense. She says that it's her turn to, go out and see what's out there. So they all tie their clothes together and make a rope for her to swing on. And the entire structure while she's out there shakes. And later you find out, spoilers, that it's because the rooms are actually rearranging themselves when you hear that shaking sound. And as a result, she nearly drops. And Quentin catches her, but simply for the fact that he can pull her up, look her dead in the face, and drop her.
I can choose if you live or die.
Yeah. And, for her to know that that he had her life in his hands and he dropped her. And that's definitely when things started to fall apart with everybody, because even though he said, she fell, the rest of the group kind of had a feeling that something had happened.
Yeah.
And later when he confesses that, yes, he did do it, he says it's flat out,
That was when he hit full paranoia.
Yeah, when he hit full paranoia and he was talking about how he could read people like a book, that he knew exactly what their thoughts were. He knew that she was in on it too because she screwed up. She knew more about him.
She had insider information.
Yeah, and no, she was actually reading from the feminist textbook of what a man is like, and unfortunately in this case it actually fit. So
at the same time, it seemed like they were really feeding off each other, the two of them.
They were
constantly arguing.
They were constantly arguing, and I did also find it interesting because what they do, what their professions are, you'd think that they would be friends. You'd think that they would be allies, because again, they both relied on the system and they both dealt with the same kind of people, and yet they hated each other.
So anyway, when he drops her, now what I thought was interesting is you never hear her hit the bottom.
No, you don't. In fact, she just disappears into the void.
Yeah, it's just this black void, and across the void is just a cement wall, nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, the cop's completely broken down. He's gone paranoid. He starts getting really creepy with the college student. And he says, again, something interesting that I think is more telling. A lot of these lines, I really think that it was the subtext of saying what this is really about.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, we're the purpose of the cube. The cube is us. That he says that when he goes full ape shit.
Yeah. And doesn't that harken back to what Ren was saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, actually what Ren was saying was the cube was watching them.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, they kept talking the cube as almost like this godlike figure. And then later they start talking about the cube as being them.
No, I thought there was something about...
you can only say... No, Ren never.
Okay.
And at that point, the cop goes full authoritarian.
Mm-hmm.
He's just going to beat anyone who disagrees. It's his way or else. He starts getting really violent. They realize that what they need to do is go back to the room they started in. It turns out if they'd gone nowhere at all.
Well, that's not when they figured that out. It's they learn that the rooms move, and they're trying to figure out, okay, from the coordinates on the rooms, where the rooms move to. And that's when it's discovered that Kazan is a mathematical savant. He can calculate astronomical numbers in his head. So that's how they're able to move around, and they're able to navigate towards the room that will be the bridge out of the cube. They figure out that they had at one time been in a room that went outside the cube, and at the time Levin didn't think that made much sense, but now they know that the rooms move. They realize, okay, they need to find that room. And so they make their way doing that, and through it the cop is slowly losing his shit, and he decides, for nearly no reason, to beat the ever-living crap out of the architect. Saying, you're a boat anchor, it's all because of you that we're all here. And what I found interesting is that the architect really didn't put up a fight.
He just took it, yeah.
He just took it. But it's when the cop then becomes violent towards the other two. He kidnaps Levin and starts touching her very inappropriately. That's when Worth starts having a reason to fight back. And he fights Quentin, even though he is no match for him physically or in any capacity, ability to fight. And he gets his ass kicked again as a result. It's the fact that he stands up to him anyway. And it's like that's what starts giving Worth a reason to live, not for himself, but to protect Kazan and Levin from Quentin.
And shit happens. They get to the room they need to. We have a nice Shakespearean ending of lots of people dying.
Well, I liked that. Again, the bridge, the room that will let them leave. I did like the fact that the only room to get to the bridge is white. And then you go from that one to the bridge, which is red. And then, and it is a blood red. They really ramped up the color on that one. And so when the outside is revealed as this beautiful white light, you never see the outside, by the way. And I like that they did it that way. Instead, you get almost this ethereal white light blasting in on them. You definitely get that, the damned looking up into heaven, imagery.
And when they find out that the cube rearranges and moves, and that the way in is the way out, I like that they said it works like a tumbler lock.
Yeah.
Yet another comparison.
That when it's in its original configuration, it's open, but once it moves out of that, it's locked.
Now, we've told most everything, but let's not ruin the end.
Okay.
Let's leave that, and let's just go to the overall point. What the hell is this thing, really? What do you think?
Me?
Yeah.
The cube is a metaphor for life, really.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor for the people that you have to deal with every day, for trying to figure out, the puzzles of life, whether it's what the government may or may not be doing, whether or not the beat cop is somebody you can trust or not. It's all about the struggles of life and what gets you up in the morning. What is your reason for continuing?
And the questions keep being asked over again. Why are we here? Where are we supposed to go?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, constantly.
What are we supposed to do? What is our purpose here?
What's it all mean?
Yeah.
And well, if you want to get more into metaphors, what did the architect do? The architect built the framework.
Yeah.
He didn't build what it's about. He just built the framework. And also the fact that he likens it to a sarcophagus, meaning, it's like when you're in, you're dead. If you want to squint, you could make a metaphor about religion with that.
Oh, I think definitely there was a semi-religious bent to it. More of a questioning than any conclusive answer.
Well, the fact that he had more of the answers than anybody else, and as a result
believed in nothing.
Yeah, believed in nothing and didn't want to fight the situation he's been put into.
Well, he was also carrying the guilt for being somewhat responsible.
Yeah.
You can take that for what you will.
And
I mean,
his name is Worth.
He's an architect. The architect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there really any more to say? Seriously. No. And he feels guilty about it. The two competing ideologies of the doctor and the cop, they just feed on each other. Neither really did much good.
Well, also, these are both positions that are supposed to help people, and yet you kind of get the impression neither one did that job very well.
Or did it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
It was very obvious that the doctor was doing it for her own self-image of being this good person, this selfless person.
Yeah.
And that she constantly needed to remind herself that she was better than the cop.
Yeah.
And the cop did it because, he needed to think of himself as the hero. He was keeping order in a lawless society.
He was the protector.
Right. And once they both lost their own stability in that role, when it stopped really lending them the security and power they thought they had, is when they both started cracking.
Yeah.
The student was obviously a bit of a did at times.
Well,
but she was so young, it kind of worked.
I liked the fact that, yes, she was very smart, but just because you're smart doesn't mean you're not still a teenage girl. And that the very first thing she does is fall apart completely.
Yeah.
And then when she thinks she has the big strapping cop on her side before things go bad, she starts pushing everybody else around and copping an attitude.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I was...
My boyfriend's going to beat you up.
When I was in high school, because that's when this came out, that's when I saw it. And I saw how she was treating everybody. I'm like, God, what a bitch. You know, I totally wouldn't be like that. And now that I'm older, I'm like, wow, that is such an accurate depiction of what a teenage girl would do.
So I think that the cube was the question. It isn't really an answer. And that in itself, it is the, I guess, the playing field or the stage in which the question's asked.
Yeah.
And that it really isn't professing to know the answers. And that's why when the one person, should I say? The ending, somebody does escape. You don't know what's beyond it. Maybe he's dead. Maybe...
You said he.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
there's only 2 women, so that leaves it open.
But we already established one died.
But, yeah. Yeah, maybe they're dead. I mean, why not? Hopefully you've already seen the film. In earlier drafts, they were in hell. So there was one. There was also drafts in which it was more of people had been living there for ages, and there were people like eating moss off the walls and had been surviving within it for years and years.
Well, that's interesting.
There was the instance in which they were finding food and water that got removed. And by the end of it, they had removed all that until it was more just kind of this vague Kafka-esque prison of some sort. And the prison being, I suppose, life. And
as Kronsky says, nobody's getting out alive.
Exactly. So I think that he purposely stripped all that away and did leave it kind of the vague Kafka-esque setting, because Kafka's stories were always these faceless governments or totalitarian regimes or experimental bodies doing horrible things to just regular people, with them never knowing why these things are happening to them. This was a real common theme. And he was paranoid. And I think that was the point. The director has made several statements since that he purposely destroyed footage that might give a sense of there being an answer. That there was some scenes that he had shot, including one outside the cube, and he felt it told too much, and that it really should be vague and unknowable. And so he actually destroyed that footage and had the one actor sign a non-disclosure to never tell anyone what that scene was.
I'm glad he did. I think the film is much better with there not being an answer, because the answer is not the point of the film.
At one point in an early draft, they were in hell. There was another draft in which it was some sort of bizarre futuristic prison, and that they were all accountants who had been chartered there, and they wake up there and it was their punishment for doing something, but they don't know what they did.
I'm just reminded about the joke about the road to hell is paved with lawyers.
That's true, you know.
Yeah.
That and movie producers.
And movie producers, yes.
Lawyers, movie producers, and people who work for Disney.
I was about to say Disney.
So I think that really that nails it. I don't think there's much more to add.
Unless all you lovely listeners have questions for us,
well,
we are going to go through the comments now.
Yes. Cube 0, no thank you.
No,
Cube
thank
3,
you.
The Revenge.
Was it The Revenge of Charazid?
Jared Zid.
Jared Zid, thank you.
All right. Gleaming the cube. Oh God, Kronk. That really does kind of defy. Yeah, that just reveal both our ages. Why don't you?
Oh.
Yeah. See, you don't even know what that is, do you?
No, I don't.
I'll
Is this a
explain.
thing? Okay.
I'll explain when I get off. When we get off of the show, off mic. There's no point.
Okay, 2 + 2 equals what I think is something red or not. I don't know. While equal clean, neutral, safe, black equals not going there. Hi, I'm going home. Oh, and in reference to the fact that the colors of the rooms don't necessarily denote safety.
Well, it looks like we just got a lot of peanut gallery comments, but no real questions.
Well, they might have questions.
So, yeah, we'll stick around for maybe a few more minutes if you've got questions for us. Absolutely. We're thinking we really want to go out of our way to cover a broad range of films that we feel need more attention or are worth your time.
Now, I remember when this film came out, a lot of people were pairing it with or comparing it to another film, Pi, that came out at the same time. What is your take?
Often in the what it was 2 very good indie sci-fi films had come out at the same time, and at I think the Cannes Film Festival and what's the other one here in the U.S. The
South by Southwest.
Yeah, South by Southwest, and the one that Redford runs, where
I don't know.
I forget. Yeah, they always paired those 2 films together, which and they were both about math, and paranoia. I mean, and they were character studies. I think that Pi is definitely better shot. Very engaging. I really enjoy that film for a number of reasons. I feel like that Pi kind of shows all the potential Darren Aronofsky had and pissed down his leg once he got popular. But we could do Pi as well. But really, as far as Sundance, thank you.
Thank you, Commissar Kronsky.
The best thing about Sundance is the fact that South Park had it explode with shit. Remember that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But actually, I remember when we first started dating, one of the very first films you were talking about before Ghost in the Shell to me was Pi. And that was because Mystery Science Theater had kind of started ripping on the film a little bit for one of their summer blockbuster reviews. And you're like, no, you need to see this. And you showed it to me.
Well, there was another reason I showed it to you. We talked about that much, much later.
Yeah.
Which is Pi is the only film I've ever seen that had the most accurate portrayal of when I was at my worst in post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
What it looked and felt like. And I had to show her that scene and say, look, if you stick with me, you're in for this. It didn't scare her.
No.
I said, okay, the power drill shit, that doesn't happen. I won't do that.
You weren't going to try to be Egon and put a hole in your head?
No.
Okay, Unqualified Comics. J.Ishiro, you should do streams on underrated comics that people should read.
Oh, absolutely. We could definitely do that.
Oh, totally.
I know that we've got a couple episodes in the can that I just never finished because, I'm sorry about not doing long form episodes that are highly polished and edited anymore, but I've got 2 choices. I can either write my novel or I can make great videos, and maybe I would divide the time more between, and I would make the time for the polished videos if they paid the rent. But really, I've got novels to write, so I just don't have the time. I'm real sorry. Because I miss doing it too. I really do. I enjoyed making those videos.
Now, with that said,
we'll do a special one every now and then.
Yeah, we're still doing special ones. We're still doing Adventures in Awful. It's just...
Which one are we going to do? What do we have on the can? What are we going to do?
Fucking Twinkle Toes Snowflake.
It was Snowflake and Safe Space, The New Warriors, and Trailblazer.
My God, Trailblazer. Yet another fucking fat joke.
But
God damn it. She is nothing without her fucking backpack. What the fuck is with you people? Anyway,
Bag of holding. But yeah, we could do some comics that are underrated.
She got Dice too. Shit.
For that matter, maybe you guys could recommend some stuff for us to check out. Or
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if we can order it through Amazon, we might look at it. I mean, we can't leave the house right now much. All the stores are closed.
Just keep in mind, if we order now, it won't show up for a month. So,
oh, Eldon's got a cool question.
Okay, do you guys think cube rules are fair, or you are supposed to lose, and they only want to see how far you can go?
Are they fair? Absolutely not. They're not fair. I mean, the puzzles themselves are almost impossible to solve. I mean, they do solve them, but you needed an idiot savant, math whiz, and a math genius who knew complex, was it trigonometry or was it geometry? I forget which, to figure out the answers of how to get out. And clearly, I suppose what the doctor's real role was supposed to be a doctor, which she never really did.
Not really. The only thing she did was Mommy Kazan.
But yeah, the escape artist, again, was supposed to obviously play a role in it. If they'd all worked together, yeah, I guess in theory they could have gotten out. But is it fair? No, I don't think it is. And I think that was kind of the point, is that it wasn't fair. I mean, it's best to think of it more as a existential meditation on existence and life. And I keep thinking of that great line that Norman Bates says in Psycho, where he says, I think we're all in our own cages, and that we scratch and bite at each other, but trying to get out, but all we ever end up doing is hurting each other. And for some reason, that quote always made me think of Cube. It just really fit.
I agree.
And I mean, clearly Norman was talking about his own mental prison of being a psychopath and knowing what he was doing, he was broken. But still, I don't know, it just seemed to really fit to me.
Well, the fact that, what's her name? Damn it, I can't remember the actress's name in that scene from Psycho.
Jamie Lee Curtis's mom.
Yes, Jamie Lee Curtis's mom. This is right after she's
the woman who gave her those great boobs.
Yes. This is right after she's just stolen all this money. So, she has this guilt on her conscience of what she's done, and yet she's in a room of somebody who's seemingly nice, and yet he's also got a secret that he's hiding.
Oh yeah.
So there's
and you know what the secret he was hiding was?
Glenn or Glenda?
He had mommy issues, and he was a soy boy.
Yes.
Actually, it was more functional than one, but
yeah.
But he was hiding that he had severe mommy issues.
And that he was attracted to women.
Yeah.
Kronsky, I liked the scene in Fire in the Sky when D.B. Sweeney had a PTSD flashback when the syrup dripped onto his cheek. I felt that was pretty accurate to how PTSD takes you away.
Yeah, I would have to agree to some extent. I've never really had them that bad per se, where it's weird. Maybe we should do sometime. Just this would be useful for other writers, maybe if they have never really understood what post-traumatic stress is like. But there's different breeds. What you're talking about is the extreme flashbacks that we usually associate with people who've been in war, where they are suddenly back in that moment of trauma. The worst I've ever gotten is when I've never actually left reality. I've always known where I am. But it's weird because situationally it gets overlaid with the reality I'm in. It's as if I'm still where I am, I'm still in the same place, but the trauma of the moment and the danger and the reaction that's required is all present. So it's almost like the two events are overlapping. So I've never, I don't know. There's a possibility I've had it happen and I don't remember it too well. Have I?
I just remember once the closest I have been around for it. Maybe you had one before we met, but it was in our old place in San Diego, and across the street they were having the New Year celebration, the Chinese New Year celebration.
Oh, and they were popping all the firecrackers.
Yeah, and we didn't know that they were going to let off fireworks, so it was totally a surprise to us.
Yeah.
And a really loud one went off unexpectedly
out of the blue. Did I hit the floor?
You froze. You turned bright. You turned just white.
Yeah.
And it was very obvious you were not there for about 2 seconds.
Oh, I spaced out. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I went over and I asked her if you were okay, and you said, "I think I need to lie down." And that was it.
I kind of remember that.
So that's the closest. Hey guys, I think it's DC that has a comic book villain with the name of Snowflake. Cocaine is his god. That's from All Out of Bubblegum.
I actually think he's telling the truth.
Yeah?
I think that actually does exist.
You know what? I think you're right. I Spy Guy. Ishi, do scents and smells ever push your PTSD buttons?
Oh, hell yeah. That's actually one of the reasons I kind of became a shut-in. It's kind of sucks in that regard. I don't know what it is. Through my 20s, I was messed up, but I could function in public. I mean, I used to go to clubs. I used to do a lot. But then, I don't know. When I hit that really bad point, I had to spend a number of years in which I just kind of isolated myself from the world because I had to really come out of it. And I can function in the world now, but yeah, senses and sounds, too much loud noise, high-pitched noises. Sometimes if I'm at a restaurant and the pots and pans and silverware are constantly banging, I can't handle it. Fireworks, very bad. Smell of gunpowder, not so good. I still go to the range though, because that's actually very therapeutic and helps me get over it. Yeah, usually it's just too much sensory input. Not a lot of smells though. The worst smell is sometimes gunpowder. That's about it.
Yeah, it's mostly sights and sounds for you. I know if there's just too many people around in general, although it might be the sound of is it the sound of the people, or is it seeing the people around you?
You know, I used to think it was all the movement around me, because there's that paranoid feeling in which you're on hyper awareness. You've got, there's too many people. You've got to keep your eyes open to make sure one of them's not going to come at you.
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed if I put my headphones on and block out the sound, I can kind of push that aside and I don't care anymore. But yeah, too much sound. I know that we're going to go see Gary Newman eventually. Mm-hmm. I just don't know how well I'm going to deal with it. But I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, it depends on what venue we're able to see him at.
Yeah,
and again, when he was playing in Irvine, he was playing in small venues. So
I mean, I used to spend so much time in nightclubs and shit, and concerts, just loud fucking drums. I can't handle that anymore.
So unqualified comics. Does shooting your own firearms ever bug you?
Oh fuck yeah. I do it because one, I think it's a necessary skill, but also I initially got into it because I realized it was something I had to do to get over the post-traumatic stress. And yeah, even after going and shooting, I'll have to leave the range. Usually I have to go sit in a quiet room and just kind of cool down for a bit. Mm-hmm. I've gotten considerably better. I think the first few times were pretty awful.
Yeah, you couldn't be in the range. Oh
yeah, I had to go outside, didn't I?
Yeah.
After I was done shooting.
Yeah, it's like, we'd get you for your turn, but when you weren't shooting your clip, you had to leave. Although I wonder if you'd be better at an outdoor range.
Yeah, well, we live here now, so there are outdoor ranges we can go to.
Yeah. Which I'm
looking forward to once the plague passes.
Mm-hmm. PTSD seems like a very powerful situation to face.
When it's real PTSD, no, yeah, it is.
Do you mind if I share a little bit?
Yeah, I don't feel like talking about it. So, but you can do a quick rundown, and I'm gonna go get more water.
There was a period when Ishi had a lot of stress in his life already, that the PTSDs were so bad he couldn't go outside at night. During the day, he was fine, but the second the sun went down, he had to stay indoors, specifically stay in the house. If we did leave, it's like, hurry him to the car so he's enclosed, like Gary Newman's song. He could not be outside. He felt exposed and vulnerable in that, and that was pretty rough. That was about 2 years that he was dealing with that, but he's all better now. That has passed, thankfully. So,
all right, we got another one here.
Okay. All out of bubble gum. I accidentally mixed up really bad one time after smoking weed. I took a hit from my vape afterwards, and I went on a very bad trip. It was terrible.
What was in your vape to do that?
Yeesh. Or was it really bad weed? Yeesh. Okay.
I had heard stories from certain individuals in my family, which I will not mention.
Oh.
What
was this, like honey oil? Or is it called a
crude
oil?
There was someone in my family, extended or immediate, I won't say.
A person that you share genes with.
Yeah, who in high school was a real big pothead and was at a party, and they were passing around the pipe, and then another pipe got passed around, and oh my God, that was crack.
Oh, fuck.
Whoops.
That's kind of what Pulp Fiction territory there, right?
Probably. All right, let's see. Is there any other that... Well, that sounds fun. Jesus.
And then that one.
Okay.
I Spy Guy. I fell on scissors when I was a toddler, which is why I have glass eye. I had a fear of falling for years, which is why I took up judo. I still don't like scissors, though.
I don't blame you.
No.
But I see you in the picture with 2 children, and I bet you can scare the hell out of them with that eye.
No, you do the trick of poking it.
Well, yeah, wasn't there an actor who used to pop their eye out to scare the hell out of people on set who didn't know it?
Wasn't that Blank Reg? Because he has a...
Oh, yeah, it was. It was Blank Reg from Max Headroom. He used to pop his eye out to scare new people that had never acted with him.
I Spy, can you remind Ishi that his audience loves him platonically?
Well, thank you. Platonically. Yeah, thank you.
You all are great. You really are. Thank you guys for joining us for this show. And again, we're going to make this a regular thing. So just thank you for joining us. Kana's Thigh. So Ishi, zombie apocalypse, going for the headshots or hack and slash then?
I'm more of a firearms person. Although, speaking of zombie apocalypses, there seem to be a lack in logic for a lot of these. Now, maybe some zombie films have covered this, but I always figured that, maybe the best way to deal with the zombies is maybe a snowplow or
at least a cattle pusher bumper.
Yeah, or why aren't like riot cops put out there? I mean, it's essentially the same thing, but easier.
Well, then the question is see, the thing with zombie apocalypse is there are so many different scenarios. You have to lay down what your rules are. Are we talking like Romero zombies, or are we talking like T-virus rage zombies?
You'd also have to figure that hockey teams would be excellent during the zombie apocalypse.
Hockey teams, baseball teams.
Yeah, I mean, they knock people over.
Yeah.
They've got full pads that...
you just get a couple linebackers to mow them down.
Yeah.
They're already, padded out, so, there's nothing for the zombies to bite.
But, yeah, I think as far as a zombie apocalypse goes, my weapon of choice would be a shotgun. Preferably sawed off so I could get some good spread. Yeah.
Or, was a AR-15 with hollow points?
Hollow points, or I don't know. How about incendiary? Wouldn't that set them on fire? And
Yeah, that would work. Well,
how
again,
long would that take, though?
Again,
The last thing you want is flaming zombies after you.
Yeah, what are the rules that you're going by? But you're thinking like load it up with tracers?
You know what? You're probably right. You're probably the flat or hollow points would be the best way to go.
Well, that way, it goes into the head and immediately just, destroys whatever brain is left. And if you did shoot through a wall, it wouldn't hurt any live people that might be there. So let's see. Elton, one of the craziest things that happened to me was that I had a dream that for some reason I thought it was a memory for decades. That can really take out your confidence.
Oh God, that's a large part of my fucking childhood.
Oh, where you didn't know what was dream and what was reality?
Yeah, and I don't know. I look back at my
Ouch.
childhood, and there are long spans where it's like, that can't possibly have happened.
And for me, I knew what was dream and what was reality. The problem was watching TV and seeing the way people interacted with each other and thinking that would be reality. And no.
That is a very nice choice, Unqualified Comics.
Shotgun is the way, like a nice 1301 tactical or a Mossberg. Yes.
We've been really looking to get a shotgun now that we live in Arizona for home defense. But the problem is either we could get an affordable one that'll do the job, or get the really awesome one.
That's an investment.
That would cost a lot of money, but it's so damn cool.
Probably would get a decent one for now and then, save up for the really nice one.
And whatever you need for skeet shooting.
Oh, yeah. I need probably a double barrel, but not side by side. I don't want side by side.
All right, guys. We're going to call it a night. We'll probably do another Japanese film. The way we plan to do this is, since we realize so many of the films we want to review are Japanese, we're going to do it we're going to alternate.
Yeah.
It's going to be a Western film, Japanese film, Western film, Japanese film. And then maybe once we're done with that, we'll get into Hong Kong.
Have we picked what we are doing next week? If we haven't,
no, we discussed a few, remember?
Yeah, we're still figuring it out. Should we do a poll?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, if you want to do a poll, set it up.
Okay,
I'm going to leave that to you.
You know what? I'll set up a poll on Twitter. So, I Spy Guy, bubblegum. Mine is an implant sewn into my muscles, so it moves. Eyes have come a long way since your grampy. Oh,
that's
dude.
Cool. Wow.
Okay, that is pretty awesome.
Yes, Kronk, we want one too.
Yes.
All right, guys, you have a good night.
Thank you all for joining us this evening while we talked about Cube.
Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll try and continue to provide you with entertainment while you're stuck in your home.
And as always, all of Ishi's books are available on Amazon. They should all be digital as well. I know that shipping time is, not the best right now, but they are digital. If you'd like to pick up a book for your Kindle, the links are in the description below. And I'll also just thank you all very much for joining us.
All right.